Welcome you all to the second day of this webinar, I think we should call it, or training, or but I think it's a webinar. Today is the second day on the effects and consequences of war situations on trafficking and exploitation, especially for women and children. And I welcome you all. We know that there are some participants who will join later or leave in between because people are working and life can be busy. But since this webinar has been recorded, everybody can have a look at it later. So even also if you want to go back to something you heard, you can also look at the video later. So welcome to all, and we start with the prayer. Anne, I can't see, oh yeah, you are there. So Anne, if you can start the prayer.
Good morning. Sister Magdalena Eichinger from Vienna is a member of the Renate House of Prayer group, and she has prepared this morning's prayer. Now, I was going to read it, but I actually think everybody around the screen probably is able to see and are comfortable enough with English to read it themselves. So if I call your name, each prayer is just written up like that. You can read it, if that's okay with everybody.
Yes.
So, thank you. So can I begin with Mary? No, actually, I'll begin with Yvonne, because Yvonne is chairing today, and then I'll go to Mary, then Natalya, then Joan. So, okay. Yvonne.
Lord, we pray, give us grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things that should be changed, and the wisdom to know the difference.
I also pray, give me compassion to help when help is needed, kindness to stand back when help is not wanted, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Give me openness to share something of my journey if helpful, humility to keep quiet if I am only boasting, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Give me gentleness to ask concerned questions, reticence to probe intrudingly, and the wisdom to know the difference.
So Pat, and then Denise, and then Andreas.
Give me willingness to organize and advise freely, patience not to interfere, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Give me courage to be honest in my response if that is called for. Sensitivity to refrain from honesty if that would be more compassionate, and the wisdom to know the difference.
May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression and exploitation of people, so that you may work for justice, freedom and peace.
Imelda and Marta and Father Manuel. So Imelda, please. Unmute Imelda.
May God bless you with discomfort and easy answers, half-truths and superficial relationships, so that you may live deep within your heart. May God bless you with tears to shed for those who suffer from pain, rejection, starvation, and war, so that you may reach out your hand to comfort them and to turn their pain into joy.
Father Roman, would you say this final one, please?
And may God bless you with enough foolishness to believe that you can make a difference in the world, not that you can do what others claim cannot be done. Amen.
Looks like there should be some music now, but
Yeah, it's not working.
not working.
No.
Okay. Well, our great thanks to Sister Magdalena who prepared this prayer. Welcome to all of you that joined. We continue today on day 2 of this webinar on the effect and the consequences of wars and war situations on trafficking and exploitation, especially for women and children. So today, day 2, and I give the floor to Natalya Holynska, one of the Renata members and coordinator of the anti-trafficking program in Caritas Ukraine. I don't know, Natalya, if you are for the whole of Ukraine or one of the regions, but
For the whole.
Okay, that's fantastic, and it was very moving, interesting, and as I yesterday told you already, it was a reality check for me, and I think for many of us, to hear what you were explaining to us yesterday. So I myself am looking forward to hear what you have, the information that you have for us today. So please, Natalya, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Yvonne.
May I ask before we begin, please? It's very distracting. I'm getting the text of what people are saying across my screen all the time. Is anybody else getting that?
You can turn that off.
Not now, Patricia. Was got it for the prayer, but not now.
Yeah.
No. If you still have it now, you go to on the bottom of your screen, you have more, and there you have one of the items is subtitles, and you can turn it on or off.
Thank you.
Yeah. Usually that helps.
Good morning once more, and thank you for coming for the second day of this webinar. My name is Natalya Holynska. I am working at Caritas Ukraine for counter-trafficking, working more than 20 years in this area, in the field grassroots level and at the national level, and now at the international level, because Caritas Ukraine is a member of Renata network. I am going to share my screen and to start my presentation. If you would need time to have a break, just tell me and we'll stop. But I think it is not so long as yesterday's. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
The whole picture without small slides?
We don't see the small slides, but I don't think we can also see the top of your screen. Yeah. No,
Better?
it's full. Yes, this is full screen.
Once more, I am going to present what is going on with trafficking in Ukraine at wartime, as we are living at war for the more than 2 years. Can you see the next slide?
Mm-hmm.
I fled Bakhmut, appeared in Kyiv city, no shelter, no resources for surviving, after suffering and violence, without husband, with 3 small children. I thought I would not survive. I came to Caritas to ask for food and warm clothes for children, but I've received not only basic things, they've helped me with accommodation and work. I didn't know what human trafficking is. I thought that it might be my fault. I asked myself why I had to suffer so much and be sexually exploited. I had no idea before war that for my survival and for my children's sake, I would give sex to invaders. This is a site from the story of Halyna, 34 years old, who suffered from sexual exploitation. Can you see next slide?
Yes.
Iryna, 33 years old, the village of Andriivka, the most remote village in Kyiv region with 300 houses, was brutally raped and sexually exploited by many Russian soldiers, while her husband was forced to stand naked in front of the house in the freezing water, and her child sometimes had to watch everything. Occupiers organized brothels in 4 houses of this village. They, like pimps, took money from their mates for sex with young Ukrainian women. These are the true stories of some Ukrainians who suffered from human trafficking and exploitation during wartime, especially at the beginning of war. With the beginning of full-scale invasion, the vulnerability of Ukrainian population increased very much, and risky behavior of Ukrainians also increased. According to a recent report of Monitoring and Counter-Trafficking Office at US Embassy in Ukraine, Ukrainians became more vulnerable to human trafficking. Prior to Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, in areas of eastern Ukraine occupied by Russia's-led forces, employment options were limited, and Russia's proxies placed restrictions on international humanitarian aid intended to help meet civilian needs. Internally displaced people whose living in Russia-occupied territory and residents of Crimea face significant barriers to obtaining or renewing identification documents. increasing their vulnerability to exploitation. Widespread reports also indicated Russian authorities confiscate Ukrainians' identification documents and force adoption of Russian passports. We are talking about vulnerability and about trafficking, vulnerability to trafficking. And we know that one of the methods how to exploit people, how to have power on them is to take their documents. And here I read you the extract from this report of US Embassy, what is happening at the non-control territories of Ukraine. So taking the documents from people is making them very vulnerable to trafficking, to labor exploitation, or to other abuse or violation. Russia's led forces exploited Ukrainians for labor, particularly in the mines of Russia-occupied Donbass. And Russia-led forces conscripted those living in eastern Ukraine to fight or engage in forced labor, such as to clear rubble or dispose of corpses. So such kind of exploitation we generally call involving into war conflict. When the people, Ukrainians, are captured or are kept in detention centers or like prisons, and they are forced to do everything that the Russian soldiers tell them, to clean, to work, to dig tranches, to clean, to cook, to be servants. But sometimes it is something more difficult or even dangerous for their life, like they force people to demine the territories by just walking in front of the soldiers, or to dispose corpses. So you can imagine how awful this kind of duty can be. One survey found that more than half of Ukrainians are at risk of exploitation and willing to accept a risky job offer that could lead to exploitation. This includes Ukrainian men and increasingly educated Ukrainians seeking to provide for their needs. Observers reported Ukrainian women and girls being recruited for sex trafficking abroad as well. Online searches for Ukrainian escorts and other search terms related to the sexual exploitation of Ukrainian women and girls increased. Traffickers targeted displaced Ukrainians via information posted online or on social media. Across Europe, Ukrainian refugees were at risk of forced labor, including in domestic work, childcare, and seasonal agriculture. Also, there are only a few confirmed trafficking cases. Since the beginning of war, we can hear a lot about trafficking and exploitation of Ukrainian refugees at the border or in some countries, but there are not so many or even only a few cases, documented cases of trafficking. So, and it's another kind of problem, the problem of screening, proper screening and identification and documentation, the crimes of trafficking, not only in Ukraine, as I think there is such a problem, but also in European Union. And the increasing of the demand is something that we also faced since the beginning of full-scale war. Demand for domestic workers, Ukrainian servants, let us say, or demand for sex, or demand for escort, let us say, that sometimes is not escort, but sex. What happened in Ukraine? Rape and sexual assault used in Ukraine as a Russian military strategy. In one horrific case alone, the body of a 7-year-old girl exhumed from a mass grave in Bucha was discovered to have 7 different traces of sperm, believed to belong to different Russian soldiers. The United Nations has verified more than 100 cases of rape or sexual assault since the beginning of the war, but a lot of cases are not discovered and not verified. The age of the victims of sexual violence ranges from 4 to 82 years old. UN Special Envoy on Sexual Violence, Pramila Pattern. Sexual exploitation of women, children, and men. After the outbreak of full-scale war in Ukraine, the violation of human rights of civilians increased. Traffickers reportedly kidnapped women and girls from conflict-affected areas for sex and labor trafficking in Ukraine and Russia. Traffickers targeted internally displaced people and subjected some Ukrainians to forced labor, forced conscription, and sexual exploitation in Russia-occupied areas, often via kidnapping, torture, and extortion. What are the peculiarities of human trafficking at wartime? Our Caritas specialists in different regions of Ukraine detect more cases of human trafficking during this wartime. They screen many cases of sexual exploitation, sex for surviving, labor exploitation, forced begging, domestic servitude, involving in criminal activities, and into armed conflict. I would add also there are cases of forced surrogacy in Ukraine. The experts notice the increase of the cases of internal trafficking in the country. Before war, there were majority of external trafficking of Ukrainians. Now it is not allowed for men to go abroad, and war is happening, war is going on in Ukraine, and all this movement of population migration to west or backwards causes the increasing of internal trafficking. And as you can see, this slide is illustrated by the picture of Victoria Boyko, 15 years old girl, and the name of the picture is The Pain of the Mother. What is the current statistic on trafficking cases in Ukraine? This is the official statistics by Ministry of Social Affairs for 2020. During a year, Ministry granted status of the person who suffered from human trafficking to 118 people. Among them, 47 women, 53 men, 9 girls, and 9 boys. Majority of cases are the cases of involving or exploitation in the war conflict or involving into war. The cases that I described, there are also cases when young people, they are forced to fight on the side of Russia because they like forced to do that. 22 cases are cases of labor exploitation. 17 cases are cases involving into criminal activities, like forced begging, delivering drugs, or some other crimes. 11 cases are sexual exploitation, selling babies, 1 forced begging, and 10 the other cases or combined cases, because sometimes one person could be exploited sexually, could be forced to fight or to work or to do something at home, or to beg, for example. So as you can see, the official statistics is not very high, because we have the problem with the proper identification of the victims of human trafficking in Ukraine. The system of identification by state institutions is rather long and bureaucratic, and the status is given by the office in Kyiv. The cases of trafficking are happening all over Ukraine, and the decision to give to recognize this case as a trafficking, the decision is made in Kyiv, and it is based only on the paper, only on the documents. If the documents are filled in properly, the person may receive the status. But is the document prepared well or not? It depends on the professional that is sitting somewhere in the Zaporizhia region, or in Lutsk, or in Odessa, or in some other small even towns or small cities. Here is statistics of Caritas Ukraine. As you see on the map, we are working not all over Ukraine. We are located in the center, in the south, and in the west. But we have only, right now, we have only 5 Caritas centers that are working for assistance to the victims of trafficking. But even having only 5 centers, during 2023, we have identified more victims of human trafficking that you saw on the previous slide than our state institutions identified. We identified 167 cases of trafficking, among them 113 women, 54 men, and including 10 children. Among these cases, 100 cases of labor exploitation, 37 cases of sexual exploitation, 14 involving into war conflict, and 16 other cases or combined forms of exploitation. Yesterday we were talking about children, and you already saw this slide with the number of children disappeared, wounded, killed, or deported or returned. And here you can see the victims of sexual exploitation. Children are trafficked for the purpose of labor or sex exploitation, for organ removal, for reprogramming or brainwashing them and involving into war conflict later on. They are forcibly deported to be brainwashed and to eliminate their national identity. Trafficking of Ukrainian children is the part of Russian policy of genocide of Ukrainian people. I was thinking and trying to identify how to name this process of deporting of a lot of Ukrainian children to Russia, forcibly deported. Why do they take so many Ukrainian children? And there are different purposes, but I have found the definition of Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, and in Article 2 it is written that forcibly transferring children of the group to another group is considered to be part of genocide. That's why not only massive killing and torture and sexual exploitation and sexual abuse of Ukrainians, but also deportation of Ukrainian children, or we may say trafficking of Ukrainian children, is a part of genocide of Ukrainian people. The peculiarities of human trafficking at war time, as we already discussed, it's the increasing of vulnerability of population to recruitment and trafficking, especially refugees and IDPs. As you can imagine, on their migration routes, people, they are very vulnerable, or being under occupation or at war zone, people are very what time we notice the increasing number of cases of sexual exploitation or sex for survival or conflict-related sexual violence. There are more cases of involving into war conflict and criminal activities, domestic servitude and slavery, or forms or contemporary forms of slavery. More cases of trafficking of foreigners in Ukraine, especially at the beginning of war, when there were some foreigners in Ukraine and full-scale war started, and they were very vulnerable. They didn't know what to do, where to move, how to escape, and some people used the vulnerability of foreigners in Ukraine, and they exploited them. And there was a group of people from Nepal, I don't remember exactly, from Asia, that were on their migration path from Asia to Europe, and war captured them in Ukraine. And they couldn't move further or couldn't move back, and they were like in a labor camp. They were exploited by Russians. There are new schemas of trafficking connected with the realities of war. And these schemas, this trend is like traffickers are using the status of Ukrainians refugees abroad that receive financial support in Europe. And it's like people from Odessa region, Ukrainians, come to France, but they are coming, they are accompanied by traffickers. In France, they apply for asylum as asylum seekers, and they receive this status. They receive bank cards, and they receive financial support from France to live for 3 months or I don't know. The traffickers, having the group of Ukrainians who already received this status and receive financial assistance, they just grab their bank cards and withdraw all the money from these bank cards, and they send people back to Ukraine. It's something new. These cases are documented and they are classified as involving into criminal activities. Possibly because of war realities, many cases are not classified as crimes of trafficking, but as crimes against humanity or as war crimes. And the first story that you read and you saw on the first slide was documented by state as a war crime. But Caritas, we assisted this person as a victim of human trafficking. The prosecution of criminal cases of trafficking in Ukraine is very low. In 2022, there were only 77 cases registered, and there were non-punishment. None one was in the prison for this case. There are a lot of challenges in our everyday life, but moreover, when we are trying to counter trafficking and to screen and assist Ukrainians who suffered from trafficking, we still face many challenges as well. Huge overloading of service organizations, especially non-governmental organizations working for assistance to victims of violence and human trafficking. Lack of qualified specialists experienced in assistance to victims of rape, sexual exploitation, or those with suicidal attempts. Lack of financing of counter-trafficking programs, and some gaps in Ukrainian legislature and system of social protection. For example, one weak point when the status is given by clerks in Kyiv only on the base of the paper documents. Another gap, for example, in Ukraine, there are no specialized shelters. Even before war, there were no specialized centers for men victims of human trafficking. And before war, the majority of cases of human trafficking were cases of labor exploitation. And there were a lot of men who suffered from labor exploitation. And there are no shelters for such beneficiaries. It is very difficult to renew the documents, and it is not easy process, long-term process, and it's not free of charge. If the victim of human trafficking lost the documents, she or he has to pay for renewal of the documents. If the person if this victim is the beneficiary of Caritas, we are paying for, we give financial assistance to pay these fees. But if not, it is very complicated. And having no documents, the person have no access to the other services of the state, and it is practically not possible to think officially without documents. On these photos, you can see our staff member who is delivering the leaflets to prevent the people from being in the situation of trafficking. And here the cover of the school copybook that we produced with the advices to children how to be safe, so-called safe rules. We produce different copybooks for children with prevention aim, with illustrations or pictures of children as well. Yesterday, somebody asked what we can do. How can we help? Stand with Ukraine, pray for Ukraine, support the most vulnerable people in your countries. Support the civil society organizations in Ukraine, assisting to those in need. And I would like to finish my presentation the quote from the statement of Caritas Ukraine at the 76th session of the United Nations General. Our deep concern and appeal is that we won't be able to combat human trafficking without promoting inevitable values such as dignity, equality, sympathy, kindness, tolerance, respect, and love as cross-cutting issues in our human family. Thank you for your attention and support and engagement in counter-trafficking. Thank you. I have to stop the
sharing.
Stop sharing, but I don't know how to do it. Okay, somewhere here. Okay.
Thank you, Natalya, for this very, very informative presentation. I think we will go out into our small groups. But before we do that, I want to ask if there are reactions or perhaps questions to Natalya for clarification, or reactions for emotions or other things you want to share. Marie?
Yeah, I'm just pondering this thing, Natalya, about what you would consider trafficking and in the war zones considered a crime against humanity. Is there a contradiction there, or is this an extension, or does trafficking get lost in all the other crimes against humanity? Is it necessary, not necessary or desirable, to have a separate case for trafficking? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I understand.
Yeah,
I understand what you mean. It's a more judicial maybe question or legislature question, but crime, as for me, crime for humanity is very general. And every crime is a crime against humanity.
Absolutely.
Crime of war is a little bit narrow, and there are a lot of crimes of war. And under the umbrella of crimes of war is a crime of trafficking. But when our territories in Kyiv region were released, and when a lot of cases of crimes, different types of crimes, I don't know, were discovered, the police, enforcement, prosecutors, army, they tried to document, at least to document these crimes. Right. And such horrific crimes of sexual abuse, sexual exploitation, rape, torture, they classified as a crime against humanity. But the sense of this crime was that the woman was sexually exploited for a period of time by many people. She was abused. So that's why we consider, and it is true, that the woman was a victim of sexual exploitation. But the authorities documented this crime as a crime against humanity. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thanks. Yeah. I just don't know. The other thing, Natalya, sorry if I'm hogging this, your last statement to the United Nations was wonderful. Can you see that as my initial reaction was in terms of demand, that if we have respect and compassion, we lose the demand for trafficked victims. And I just thought that was very powerful, that it's actually saying to go back, you know, one step back. If we have these values, then we don't exploit people, either sexually or in labor or in begging or whatever. So I just wanted to say that I thought that was very powerful. And
I totally agree with you. And actually, I was the author of this last page of last.
Oh, well done.
Last paragraph of this statement, because usually statements are like blah blah blah, of very official, and I wanted to add something very touching, something that is inside of my soul, and in the souls of many Ukrainians and many people in the world, because I am Christian, I believe in God, and I do know that without these Christian values, our contemporary world will not survive. We will lose our human identity if we will not love, if we will not practice compassion, mercy, assistance to those in need. And today's prayer also gave me one more very strong value, wisdom. It was repeated several times, give us wisdom. Lord, give us wisdom to differ good from evil, to differ good things and bad things. Give us wisdom to understand how to move forward, what to do in the future. Give us wisdom how to help to those miserable people. And I think wisdom is also something that is very important in our current situation. Thank you.
Thanks, Natalya.
Thank you, Natalya, for your answers. Any more reactions before we go into breakout rooms? Okay, so we have about 20 minutes in our breakout room, and then we can go into our coffee break. Anne, do you expect us back before the coffee break? And then no?
I think we'll follow the routine from yesterday morning. It worked well. Go to have your coffee break after the breakout rooms, and everybody back at is 10 o'clock, 5 past 10?
The full hour, let's say.
On the hour.
Or 11, it depends on where you live. Yeah, okay.
But dear friends,
it's not long.
I think I will leave you after coffee break because I have another event. So I'll be with you only half an hour. Is it okay?
Then I have one question because I wanted to ask it perhaps after the coffee break, and it also has to do with what Mary was saying, and you were speaking about human trafficking in war situations. And I was thinking the law that we have now, the definition that we have on human trafficking, it doesn't feel appropriate to use it in war situations, like exploitation involving war, forced fighting for the enemy. That it doesn't feel correct to say that's labor exploitation, or soldiers forcing a woman. I think that's rape, and it's not, so I was thinking, should there be a change in the definition of the United Nations? Should we try fight for that, or because it doesn't feel appropriate?
We have already. Thank you for this very important question. We have already discussed this issue with some experts from Great Britain, by the way. because now the issue of conflict-related sexual violence is considered is somehow not under the definition of human trafficking, and it is like another crime. But the case that I described you at the beginning of my presentation, is it conflict-related sexual violence? Yes, I think. Is it sexual exploitation? Yes. Is there act, mean, and purpose as three main pillars of trafficking definition? Yes. So, is conflict-related sexual violence is a part of a kind of human trafficking, or sex for survival? We had very strong discussion, and Natalya is present here, and Tatiana, and they remember this discussion about sex for survival. Is this trafficking, or it's just another case? But if the woman was forced, she was raped by one soldier and it happened once. No, she was kept and she was raped. So it means she was exploited, though she was not recruited. But war context, at war context, the people are not recruited. They are just kept, imprisoned or locked.
Yeah.
Yes, and here this war content or context, I don't know how to say properly, has another influence, and something should be improved somehow, or I don't know, but it is the topic for the further discussions and for the experts. And there are ideas to review the Palermo Protocol and definition, and to make it more clear, more proper, more precise.
And I think it can be done, because the Palermo Protocol didn't mention organs or babies, or, you know, there were many things added. So I think they can also say trafficking in war situations, it's different. There are different aspects, but I think it's very interesting to think about it, and perhaps have another webinar or discussion for that. But so thank you for your answer now. And Joan, do you want to say something?
Yes. I don't necessarily want to bring in another aspect, but I think that the question sex for survival is really important. And I suppose I'm thinking about certainly the specificity of it in a war situation, but also the interface of that with poverty and the feminization of poverty.
Yeah. I think that's,
in the wartime situation, the poverty is probably broadly related and very specifically related to that particular situation, but that there are so many other forms of poverty from so many other root causes as well. Anyway, as I say, I don't want to introduce another dimension, but I think it's a very broad area.
You raised a very valid point. Sex for survival, or selling sex for survival, it's not just in war situations, but there are some things that Natalya mentioned that are specific for war situations. Sure. And I think the whole definition by the Palermo Protocol should be reviewed on that. I agree on that. Okay. So leaving you with this discussion, we now go into breakout rooms. Anne, I think you have everything prepared for that.
Everything prepared. Are we okay with the time provided for people to come back maybe 5 past the hour, just to give people a little bit of extra?
Yeah, 5 or 10 past the hour.
Yeah. Okay.
We have quite a long time. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Like
In Jerry.
Jerry.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh,
So it's like Tom and Jerry, but Jerry with an N at the beginning.
with an N.
Yes,
Okay.
with an N. It's a local name. So yeah, my name is Njeri and my colleague here is Mercy. So I think how we've planned to do the presentation, we'll be doing it together. So we'll work within the 20 to 25 minutes, and then after that, we can go to the breakout room.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to know. I don't know if everybody has returned from coffee break already.
There's a few more coming back in.
Yeah.
Here we are. Ah, yeah, we're okay. I was
I
waiting
see
for
that.
Andreas and Joan. I know Patricia
Usually
is here.
people have the sounds on, so they hear us talking and they think, okay, coffee break is over. So we just go gently. Okay.
Sorry, I have to stand up every so often, so that's why I turn my camera off.
No problem, Patricia. It's great that you are here. Okay. I think, yes, we just slowly start. One of the attendants is walking, I see.
She's going on the motor scooter or something.
I think she's walking about
She's
somewhere.
walking, yeah. She
Yeah.
has the phone on. I
Yeah.
don't know if she needs to have it
Yeah,
on.
you have the phone on walking. That's very nice to
Yes,
see the sky in
in the
Ukraine.
mountains.
Okay. Okay. So we will start with the second part of today's webinar. And we are now going to focus wider. Until now, we focused on Europe and especially on Ukraine. And now we've asked Jerry to start a presentation together with her colleague Mercy. You are both from HAART organization. I've known you for many years. I've been following you on Facebook and everywhere, and I'm very happy that you are going to be the next persons to tell us some more in this topic. And if you want to start by introducing yourselves, both you and Jerry and also Mercy, then you can start your presentations. Thank you.
Okay, let me share my screen. But before that, let me see. Give me a second.
Yes, looking good. Yes. Fantastic.
Okay, great. Yeah, so my name is Njeri Ragoi. Yes, Ragoi, and I work here at HAART Kenya. I am the communications officer, but I work closely with different departments that support survivors of human trafficking and creating awareness. I'll let my colleague introduce herself.
Hello everyone, my name is Mercy Njero. I am a survivor leader at Kenya.
Yeah, so based on what we had discussed with Anne, there was a request of us talking about holistic care that's enabling victim transformation, partnering with survivors, and developing community resilience, which has a lot to do with the work that we do. So I felt that it's best to have an individual with lived experiences to come and share this part. So maybe Mercy, you can tell us a bit about before you met HAART and how you ended up in a trafficking situation, in summary.
Okay, like I said earlier, I am a survivor leader, but before I got to be a survivor leader, I have gone through a journey of being a victim of human trafficking and being also a survivor. But before I met HAART after my trafficking experience. So before I met HAART, I chose to go to seek for greener pastures because I had siblings who were looking up on me on few things like provision of basic needs and more so school fees. So I just took a risk of going abroad to seek for greener pastures. And that's how I found myself in a trafficking experience. But I thank God I survived and I was able to be repatriated back to my country. And after I came back, I met HAART and I started a journey of healing with them. I have gone through several stages for me to be where I am and for me to be able to speak about my experience without being traumatized. I have gone through several stages, which I was taken care of by HAART, and now I am a proud survivor leader.
Thank you so much, Matthew. And I'm also very happy to be working with you. It's always great to see survivor leaders, joining in and working together with us. So in our group, we had a brief discussion, though I was a very silent listener, and there was a discussion around whether, since Kenya does not experience war and conflict, we do experience skirmishes, especially around political unrest when it comes to the election period due to tribal lines and stuff like that. However, when it comes to human trafficking, we say that Kenya is a source and transit and destination for human trafficking. So we do get a lot of victims of trafficking from countries that go through war, such as Ethiopia and Eritrea, where they come in illegally and find themselves in a trafficking situation here in Kenya. We also do get guests or people who've been trafficked from Uganda, Burundi, Tanzania. And when we say it's a transit, it's also a place where many of people who are trafficked use Kenya as a route to go to their destination country. And also we have it as a destination where some people come to Kenya for greener pastures and find themselves in a trafficking situation. So I'll just give a brief background about HAART Kenya and what we do. We are an NGO that is based and started in Nairobi in 2010, dedicated to fighting human trafficking. And our vision is a society free from trafficking in persons. And we do this by collaboratively creating a trafficking-free environment through holistic care, enabling victims' transformation, partnering with survivors, and developing community resilience, which is what we will be discussing a bit more. We are definitely victim-centered, where our work is around supporting survivors based on their needs. And our core value is also commitment, partnership and collaboration, integrity and care. So this is our mandate. We operate through the 4 Ps, that's protection, prevention, prosecution, and partnerships. We have been in existence, as I mentioned, for over 10 years. And now 13 years. This will be actually our 14th year. We turn 14 later on in the year, if it's about the month. So far through our community resilience, we have reached over 120,000 people. These are individuals who are targeted to be given information about human trafficking. And we have given direct support to survivors for over 1,000 of them. So when it comes to the work we do at HAART, we have a broad scope of partnerships and impact areas. So HAART Kenya is a CSO here in Kenya, and we work with fellow CSOs and different partners. For grassroots communities, we go to where they are. These are areas where we have gotten like high cases of human trafficking. So we choose areas based on that and engage the communities at that level, whether it's in their local dialect, whether it's working with individuals who are speaking a different tribe but are able to communicate in their dialect so that they understand what human trafficking entails. We also work at with the national government, state actors such as the police, the Kenya Police, Foreign Affairs, Immigration, the prosecutors, the judges in Kenya, amongst others. And we are also part of the global community, such as UNODC, United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime, IOM, ILO, COURTNet, 8.7 Network, amongst others. So as we jump into the protection engagement, I'd like to share that here at HAART, we choose to refer to survivors as survivors, though we understand that legally the word would be victim, but as we continue talking, when we refer to survivors, we mean victims of trafficking in persons. So this is an image where we worked with a survivor who was sharing her story of empowerment and how she had traveled abroad to Saudi under the duress of, she was duped that she would be working as a customer care agent, but then ended up working as a domestic worker. She had left her 2 children who are very young. I actually had the privilege of meeting her, and it was just great to see that even though she has gone through that trying experience, she was able to speak up and talk. She is not a survivor advocate, but she has gone through our program and is part of our survivor program. So for HAART, survivor support is basically providing assistance to survivors based on their needs and the resources available that we have as an organization that we receive from different partners. We also acknowledge the fact that organizations have different levels of competency, and if one doesn't have that, the organization can refer to another one. For example, we are based in the capital city here in Nairobi, but we do get cases from Mombasa, from Kisumu, other cities in Kenya. So we collaborate with other organizations to offer support. And part of survivor support is case management, where it's all about giving back the power to the survivor, because they were at a point of being stripped of their decency, and they have gone through really trying times. So when it comes to survivor support, we ensure that we journey with them to a place where they can now say they're resilient and they can even speak up for other survivors. So we operate based on the principles of survivor support. So for trauma-informed, as an organization, we acknowledge we are working with people who have been traumatized. And as Mercy mentioned earlier at the introduction, is that she went through the healing journey. For us, before even offering other support, it's very important for us to ensure that survivors feel that they have been supported, especially when handling their trauma. And we also acknowledge that they have different reactions, and journey with them in that regard. We ensure there is confidentiality and that they are able to reach out to us in terms of when it comes to trauma. We also acknowledge the existence of secondary trauma that is to the staff who work directly with the survivors. These are we call them case workers. And so we offer an opportunity for psychosocial support through therapy and debrief sessions. So when it comes to survivor informed, we are, as an organization, we ensure that the services provided to survivors are meeting their needs. We also give them an avenue to share feedback and suggestions on what we can add and improve the support we give them, because they are the ones with lived experiences. The other principle on confidentiality is everything they share with us is within the confines of the person they are working with, unless there is, we only breach if the information we receive can cause harm to an individual or someone else. So while we're offering this survivor support, we ensure that it's human rights based and we respect their rights as an individual and as a human being. And for evidence-based, we do a lot of research. Our CEO and founder, Dr. Malinowski, is our lead researcher and is very keen on ensuring that the work we do is research and evidence-based, so that we understand that the services we offer, are they working for these different survivors, among others. And for referral is what I gave an example. If we are unable to offer support at this level, we then refer to them to other organizations. So as part of principles, we do uphold ethical storytelling. So for example, what you're seeing are photos of survivors we hosted at our shelter. We do have a shelter for survivors of human trafficking. These ladies were from Ethiopia and Eritrea and had escaped their countries due to war. And so they had been intercepted by the Kenya police. The Kenya police are the ones who brought the survivors to our shelter. And out of this, after engaging with them and having a trauma-informed engagement, they were willing to share their stories, but we also ensured that we have ethical storytelling in terms of, as you can see, we can't see their faces, but there are photos of empowerment, photos of hope. It's not all gloom and doom, because we ensure that we uphold the values of the survivor. So these photos actually were picked by the Trafficking in Persons Report 2023 for last year, and we are happy for them, even though we repatriated them back to Ethiopia and Eritrea. We are happy that they were featured in such a crucial report. So for the process on how we engage survivors, once we receive survivors here at our organization, we go through a screening tool. That's the IOM screening tool to ensure that they are actually survivors of human trafficking. And after a needs assessment, where we go through, this could be a caseworker visiting them in their own homes to see what are their crucial needs. We develop a case plan on how we'll support the survivors. And then when it comes to rehabilitation, based on the needs they need, is it immediate rent? Is it medical support? For the ones who go to the shelter, is it, it also includes some bit of having interpreters, because some of the guests we get or the survivors we get from Ethiopia and Eritrea do not speak English or Swahili. So basically it's offering them that support. And then when it comes to reintegration, it's after they have gone through psychosocial support and they now need to get back into the community to ensure that we reduce the risk of re-trafficking. What activities can they do to ensure that they have a sustainable livelihood? We also do follow-up where we ensure that after offering this support, we do check-ins with the survivors to ensure that they are able to continue on with life after going through a traumatic experience. And then we have the case closed. But even if the case is closed and survivors need support, we are always there to offer them the support. And in the middle, we've written staff self-care because it's important for the individuals who are supporting the survivors to ensure that their well-being is upfront. So here we just have a summary of what I was talking about, where after rescue and identification, where we collaborate closely with the police. We do not do direct rescues due to the situations, but it's better to work with the local police. We then offer them basic needs, psychosocial and medical support, legal aid for where there are cases. For example, in 2022-2023, we offered support to some Ugandans who had been trafficked to Kenya for sex trafficking. And this was a success story because in March, the trafficker was sentenced to 20 years in jail. We also offer education support for especially children who have been trafficked and are in the middle of the education, and even for the ones who have finished the level of primary and secondary education. If it's about tertiary education support, we do offer that. Economic empowerment and repatriation for survivors who are not Kenyans. Some of the survivors we get in terms of country of origin are Kenyans, from Uganda, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Burundi, Tanzania, Malaysia, Nepal, and India, amongst others. And from our database, we see a lot of those survivors have been exploited in Kenya, Saudi Arabia, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, Qatar, Lebanon, Iraq, South Africa, amongst others. So a key component for us in enabling that we reduce the risk of trafficking, whether it's for those who are non-Kenyans or Kenyans, is economic empowerment. And looking at the bubbles, we do have 3 components that support this. So we have technical and vocational skills training, where individuals choose to either go to tailoring or beauty college to ensure that they can get the skills at hand to generate income. We also have those who choose to go back to work and in formal employment, and then we have those who decide to start a business. For these 3, they're all tied up into a program we do call economic empowerment training, where we ensure that they are trained on soft skills and startup businesses so that we reduce the risk of businesses collapsing. That's why from 2020, out of the businesses we implemented around 324 businesses in partnership with donors who support the work we do. And from them, where we've done follow-ups, we have a 65% success rate, meaning that these survivors are able to run their businesses without falling back to HAART in terms of HAART supporting them, because then they are able to support their families. So at this point, when it comes to economic empowerment, this program aims to sort the push factors of human trafficking here in Kenya, and also the ones who come from other countries where it's conflict and wars, illiteracy, poverty, and high unemployment rates. So for now, I would like to welcome my colleague Mercy to talk about some of the challenges and recommendations around economic empowerment. But before that, she can tell us about what she did in terms of the 3 components of economic empowerment.
Thank you.
And just as a note, in this picture here of the lady doing the braids, that is Mercy herself.
Thank you. And looking into economic empowerment, I am a beneficiary of technical and vocational training. After I came back from the country where I was in Lebanon. I was trafficked to Lebanon, and I would just say by good luck or by bad luck, I became a mother as a result of being trafficked. So when I came back, I was in a fix. I didn't know what to do with my life. I was traumatized. And when HAART reached out to me, and I went through the process of healing, I started with therapy because I know that for me to make sound decisions, I need to be mentally okay. Then when I was okay mentally, I chose to join the vocational training through HAART, and I was able to enroll myself in to get trained on diploma in hairdressing. And as you can see in the picture, that is me at school. And I have benefited from this training. And apart from benefits, there are also challenges. And one of the challenges that we have is majority of survivors opt for business startups for quick returns or personal economic needs, and other ones amongst others. And then another challenge was also literacy level, especially when certification is needed. For example, if you want to join a college here in Kenya, most of them, they ask for the certificates from the school, and you find that a lot of survivors, they don't have this, they have no education, they didn't attend schools, or maybe they attended but they didn't finish their school, so they don't have those certificates. Also, when seeking jobs, a lot of jobs needs us to have these certificates, and it's sad that a lot of survivors don't have them. So that is one of the main challenges. We also have recommendations. one of the recommendation is have options for survivors. An example of having options for survivors is if a survivor is not qualified education-wise to fit for a job, I would recommend that they offer something like sponsorship or maybe training for them to be able to fit in the decision-making spheres, and also for them to be able to qualify to have that job opportunity. Then another one is have a training on career options to assist survivors in exploring their strengths and weaknesses and aligned with their training options. Another recommendation is to encourage women to explore, take up on non-women and male-dominated field. And then another one is support with job placement or internships. For example, like in my case, I have already done the diploma in hairdressing. So I would recommend that anyone in the field, and for you to support survivors, you need to know what they want, what they are comfortable doing in their lives. So when you find a person like me who is able, who has skills on hairdressing, and you work on that field, I would recommend that you give us those opportunities to be able, for us to be able to grow. Then another recommendation is to work with government accredited institutions. And then apart from going through the process of healing and going to the training and all that, there is also survivor engagement and survivor leadership. I am also part of it, and this is looking onto how to include the voices of survivors in everything that the organization is doing. One is inclusion of HAART in survivors in HAART day-to-day activities. Like, for example, in awareness creation activities, they always include us, they go with us. We go to the communities, we go to the schools, to the churches to create awareness. Then they have capacity strengthening for survivors in areas of interest. For example, there are survivors who have born parents. If you are able, maybe for example, you are an artist, you are supported by the organizations. If you are able to do a different task from those who joined the vocational training, HAART is there also to support you. We have also survivor voices in the movement or organization level, national and international. They also include us in meetings that they do with other organizations, with other CSOs, and also with the governments and other where there is we need to be able to influence policies. They include us there. We go with them, and our voices are able to be heard. And then we have a survivor advisory board. I am a member of the board, and here we advise organizations on the needs of the survivors, and we also represent other survivors who are not able to come and speak their mind. We hear from them, and then we bring what they need to say to the organizations. We have different achievements as a survivor advocate. One is policy review and influence, as you can see in the screen. We participated in, we also have media engagement. We have been able to go and do awareness creation in TV, radios, and social media. We have also done social media interviews. We have a lot of us also are interested in facilitation work, so they are given opportunities to go and raise awareness through workshops across the country. Also in churches and in communities and central-based business districts, and also in big cities in the capital. we have been able to participate in awareness creation in the capital here in Nairobi and different areas. I have also helped in research. I have helped in doing a research as a research consultant. I have been able to address the needs of the survivors through the person who was doing the research. And then we have also participated in photo exhibition of human trafficking. As you can see in the photos there, we have different photos here. And we have also done awareness work within Nairobi Central Business District. And I have also participated in different webinars as a speaker. And that makes me to be a proud survivor leader. And I am still continuing to grow my strength in that. Those are photos of us, survivor advocate in different engagements. And we also have recommendations to organizations, government and private sectors. One is for you to acknowledge survivor advocates' unique contributions in effort of ending human trafficking. We might not be able, we are not so much educated. We don't have the degrees and the PhDs and the whatever, but we have lived experience. So we are the people who know what happens in the ground. So I would recommend that you acknowledge our contributions in everything that you do as organization or as individual to end human trafficking. Then another one is remunerate them adequately for their expertise, time, and activities, regardless of us being empowered. Every time you call survivors to go and attend something, and a meeting or just a workshop or a conference, and they have participated in a good way, I would recommend that you be able to remunerate them. It might not be enough, but whatever you give will be good for them to keep them going. Then another one is you create more employment opportunities for survivor advocates in the anti-trafficking spaces. Like I said earlier, we might not be fit to be able to make decisions in those areas, but I would say that you offer something like training or sponsorship for us to be able to fit in those spheres. Sorry for that. I will go back to the slide. Another recommendation is for you guys to recruit survivor advocates for positions in governmental and non-governmental organizations and private sectors. And another one is for you to create and support education opportunities for survivor advocates to qualify for decision-making professional positions in the anti-trafficking sphere. And that's it. Then I will welcome Jerry to continue with the remaining parts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mercy. So I will quickly summarize the projects we have for community resilience. So as mentioned earlier, we do work with grassroots communities. Here we see some Samburu women learning about human trafficking. For them, the most common form of human trafficking, especially amongst the girls, is early child marriages, where it's a cultural practice commonly accepted, but is still a form of trafficking. So when we get to talk with them at that level, they get to understand the different forms of human trafficking. So for HAART, we work with ensuring that the communities understand what human trafficking is and how to migrate safely, because migration is not a crime. It's just that they need to understand when you're migrating, how do you ensure that when you go to a different country, that you are safely working there. So some of our prevention projects are first responder trainings, where we engage individuals who are like the police, the community chiefs, etc., on understanding how human trafficking manifests itself, so that then when people report cases, then they know how to support the individuals. We are very big on children workshops because a lot of cases here in Kenya end up being child trafficking and child labor. So ensuring that children are empowered with knowing their rights. Community workshops for areas especially that are prone to human trafficking. We also have joint forums that are where we have community people coming together with the first responders like the police, the chief, to discuss on how to end human trafficking. We also do conduct child safeguarding clubs that are there to ensure that it's a one-year project where children are taught about human trafficking, their rights, and how they can be advocates for fellow children. We have a program called Young at Heart. This is for vulnerable youth who may not have gone through trafficking, but they're empowered with their tools on ensuring that they don't fall prey into trafficking. We do operate a helpline where individuals from all over the world can reach out to us and get that support. Mercy has already talked about media engagement. So these are just a few photos of some of the work we do here at HAART. We have Young at HAART. They do a lot of activities, especially that are art-based, so dancing, etc. As mentioned, grassroots communities, we reach out to different children across the country so that they are empowered with the knowledge on human trafficking. Media engagement, to note a lot of the engagement we do with media, we always go with survivor advocates and leaders who are empowered with the knowledge on how to share advocacy messages around human trafficking. And a lot of the modes of delivery that is to note is we use local languages, especially what we would call, I don't know what the English word would be, but the local language amongst the youth is different from the tribal language. So we use that to ensure that young people are able to understand what human trafficking entails. And we do this through also radio dramas and engaging people with lived experiences. So thank you very much. We have come to the end of our presentation. And I would like to note that I do have my colleague here on call. Her name is Winnie Mutebu, who has also joined us today for the webinar.
Thank you very much, Jerry, and also you, Mercy, for your contribution. And if you can stop sharing the screen, we can go back to the whole group. And first, I want to ask if there are any questions or any other things that people want to say or want to ask you or want to tell you. Mary?
As usual. Yeah, and Jared, thanks very much, and Mercy, thank you. I just want to ask you, one of the things that came up that's very much exercising our minds here was the offer of legal aid. Do you have lawyers who provide this service for you? Do they do it pro bono, or do you have to pay them, or are they actually in your employ? How does it work?
Oh, yeah, okay. I was looking for you on my screen. Thank you, Marie, for your question. So we do have both. We have those who we employ to offer the legal aid support, and then we have volunteers. For high-profile cases, we have partners who offer that support in terms of funding because it can be quite expensive from our end.
Yeah.
Finally, we also developed a book called, we call it the Legal Aid Handbook. Now, this handbook enables frontline workers like case workers to ensure that they have the basic knowledge on how to offer support to survivors at the beginning, because sometimes before we get the survivors to meet the lawyers, they more often than not get to work with the case workers, so that they know their legal rights, because it can also be a bit challenging when following up with cases here. But if Winnie would like to add more, she can add.
Winnie.
Winnie.
No further addition, Njeri. That was clear enough. Thank you very much. But maybe
Okay,
just, I think just to mention, it's one of the most expensive services. After psychosocial support and medical support, legal becomes one of the most expensive when offering support to survivors.
Yeah, that's what we think too. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Marie. Any other questions? I have a lot of questions, but I always have. First of all, I wanted to congratulate you on the work that you have been doing. I think I met your director in New York. I think it was at the start of your organization. And it's fantastic to see what you have achieved and what you are doing. And what I especially like and what I really admire, and that I think we can learn from you perhaps, that you are so strong on survivor actions. And like Mercy was telling us, proud to be a survivor leader or a survivor advocate. And for us, this sometimes is very difficult to understand or to ask survivors to become an advocate, because we sometimes as organizations feel that we have to protect them, or that they are very vulnerable, or we couldn't ask of them to talk about what happened to them. So can you tell us, also Mercy, can you tell us what made you decide to become a survivor's advocate, and how does it feel, and what makes you feel so proud about it? And just that for the first question.
Thank you for your question. First, I would say that it is not just something that you wake up into and you just want to be a leader. You have to go through several steps from being a victim, a survivor, then being a leader. There are several steps that you have to follow. And myself, I always say that the key one is being mentally okay. Most of the survivors that come from from where they were trafficked from, they are not so stable. You might think that they are okay mentally, but once you sit with them and get to have a talk with them, you realize that that person is still traumatized. So I say that therapy is the key factor to the growth of a survivor, because when a survivor is mentally okay, they are able to make sound decisions, and decisions that they will not regret. Myself, it was not easy for me also to accept therapy, but I would insist that organizations should know that even when a survivor is not ready to accept therapy, they should not give up on the person. They should pursue until it is the right time for them to be able to offer that service, because it's the key one. I underwent through all those trainings, and in myself, I realized that a lot of survivors don't want to speak about what happened to them, because a lot of them, once they start speaking about their experience, they become re-traumatized again. So I had to learn the art of that whatever happened to me, it was not my fault. It was not my fault, and I cannot continue blaming myself for whatever happened, and it can happen to anyone. And I also mastered the art of doing advocacy without necessarily telling about my story. Even though I am okay about speaking whatever happened to me myself, I don't feel anything speaking about it. But there is also art of doing advocacy on doing anything related to human trafficking without speaking about your personal experience. Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Mercy. I congratulate you and I admire you for the steps that you have taken and for the leadership that you are showing. And well, it's really very special, I think. I see we have another question from Sister Imelda. Imelda.
It's more like a comment. I found you both remarkably wise women. And we have many sisters in Kenya, and I'm struck by the wisdom that comes forth from your culture or maybe your challenges. But what I was really moved by and really impressed by, you might say, was how you as a survivor, Mercy, actually didn't need to tell your story in detail to bring forth your wisdom as a survivor. And I think it's the first time ever in a long history of working against human trafficking and hearing many survivors speak, where the detail of the story hasn't been the only thing that's coming from survivors, and you don't get the human person that's recovered and that is leading and that is wise. So I just want to thank you for another way of a survivor leader being an advocate. It was absolutely remarkable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, very good. I have another question for Jerry, and that has to do with the topic that we had yesterday and today. And I think you also spoke that you have people in your organization, guests or survivors, or I don't know how you call them, beneficiaries, who come from, I think you mentioned Sudan and Ethiopia, and those are countries we know are also in war. Do you feel there is a difference in what they have gone through or what they are suffering from as being trafficked from war situations than other victims or other beneficiaries in your organization?
Yeah, so we do have the victims coming from Ethiopia and Eritrea. For those ones, in comparison to, of course, they do have similar experiences where there's trauma and all that. But the difference we see is for the ones coming from conflict areas like Ethiopia and Eritrea, they are the ones we mainly support from that area, is they have a lot of mistrust, and their basis of trafficking is always from their country where they were escaping something really like life-threatening. Because locally for us in Kenya, the push factors is probably poverty, illiteracy, optimism to some level, where they feel like even if someone went to another country and they were trafficked, I can go and be a better worker, I will be more obedient. That happened to that person. So the initial drive factor is where we see the difference. But for the rest, in terms of trauma, difficult experiences, they do share similarities in that regard.
Okay, yeah. I have to look at the time, and I see that we are approaching the full hour. Well, in my time zone, it's almost 12. Woody,
Yvonne Winnie has her hand up.
Something to add? Yeah.
Yes, I would like to add. Thank you very much, Yvonne. Yes, I would like to add to the point on survivors from war-torn regions. I think the other challenging factor is reintegration. Looking into, most of the times, victims are keen to be able to reunite back with their families, are keen on being able to get back to their lives and being able to get back to their homes. When it comes to those who are coming from conflict zones, they don't have a home to go back to. So most of the time, they're also seeking asylum to stay either within Kenya or other parts of the region, or sometimes also just seeking resettlement to other parts of the world. So it's also just a question on how best do you support someone who they don't have a place to go back to. So their exit strategy requires more planning, more stakeholders to be brought on board for that to be done, because most of them lack the social capital to go back to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's you're correct. That's a big difference. Yeah. Any other suggestions? I see that there is something in the chat, but I cannot read it because it's my computer doesn't, the letters are too big to read. Sorry.
Yvonne, I was just about to share that it's really helpful that Jerry and Mercy have both referred to child marriages in their presentation to us as well. And, you know, sometimes in the realm of human trafficking, child marriage has somehow been maybe perhaps at one end of a scale, whereas in actual fact it's a very real cultural component of trafficking. And it will link very nicely in tomorrow morning's presentations from Sister Orla Treacy, IBVM Loreto sister in Sudan, and we hope to build upon that. So it's lovely to see that you've dovetailed in, and I'm grateful for that as well too. Thank you.
Is Mary Christine trying to get in, or is she just waving at us?
I think she was just trying to adjust her phone.
Okay.
Yeah. So I suggest we take a short time for the breakout rooms now.
Yeah.
We still have about 25 minutes before, or a half an hour before we end this webinar of today. So I suggest we go into breakout rooms for 15 minutes and then return. And I think you have the breakout rooms ready again. And in 15 minutes, we will come back to share what we have been discussing.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Okay. To respond, and if they want to share a little bit, and then we can ask you to, yeah?
Definitely. Or tomorrow, mates.
But it would be okay to have something today, and then tomorrow see how we do tomorrow. But
yes, no problem.
I'm very much interested also in your experiences. Yes, yes.
No.
Okay. So if we're all back,
yes,
I think we are. Then I just wanted to invite people from the different groups. Is there something you want to share with the rest of the group? Something you discussed?
And we had 4 groups.
We had 4 groups. We have, well, I don't know, Jerry and also Mercy. You have been congratulated by all members of our group. We were really in admiration of your work and what you have been doing. Father Manuel, I don't know if he's still here.
Yes.
He is.
Here he is.
Yes, I am here.
Yes, yes.
And I was just coming back.
Do you want to repeat one of the things that you were saying about your...
Yes, the first thing that impressed me is that it's a local organization, and it's people who are practically being the ones who are doing the job, which is so good. I think one of the dangers of any overseas non-organization is not to be able, or finding very difficult, that the local people take the responsibility and go ahead. I think it makes the hell of a difference, you know. For instance, listening to this young mother here, that Kathy, I didn't get your name. The name of your helper.
Mercy.
I think it's very encouraging for us and you to the what do you call Yeri. I think it's wonderful when we hear that, and I think it's only encouraging for us, you know, wherever we organize something that we may not be always in the steering wheel, isn't it? That, you know, to ask people to join us and to be responsible for what they could do, perhaps even better than us, who on another country we are, you know, foreigners.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for the beautiful job you are doing.
Yes, that's what we discussed in our group. And before I ask Patricia what her comment is, I just wanted to add that some years ago, I think already almost 15 or 20 years ago, I was one of the persons, like Father Manuel was saying, coming from Western Europe, going to Kenya to speak to people about human trafficking and warning people not to come. But it's so ineffective, and it's so much better if you do it yourselves, to explain what human trafficking is, and to not believe the stories, and to not you know, do this to yourself. So yes, we are very happy with what you have told us and what you have shown us. So thank you. Patricia.
Thank you very much to you both. I hadn't heard of HAART before, and I was very interested in it. More or less what Father Manuel has said, you know, I just reiterate what he has said. But my question was going to be to you, how easy or how difficult is it, or was it, to tell your own story? And what was the interval? The reason I ask that is because in the safe house where I go to in London, the person in charge there is very strict about not allowing people to tell their story publicly, because she considers it's re-traumatizing the person. So obviously you wanted to do that yourself, and my own belief is, until we get survivors like you to be on the platform and to enable you, and that's our role, I suppose, to give you the voice that you have, we won't make any real headway with this whole
correct.
Yeah. So I just wanted,
And Yeri or Mercy, do you want to respond to that, or do you want to react?
Okay, like I said earlier, me reaching to the point where I am comfortable speaking about my experience, it took time. It is not something that I just woke up one day and I decided to start speaking about it. I went through different steps so that I can reach that level of being able to stand in front of people and being able to speak about what happened to me. I always tell myself that my drive to speaking about my experience is that whatever happened to me, it was not my fault, and I don't want to blame anyone for it. So and this is what a lot of survivors lack. They don't have the confidence to stand out there and speak about whatever happens to them because they are afraid of being judged. the society and the community here. Also me myself, I face this every time I tell someone, someone who has not ever had maybe of human trafficking, or maybe they have basic, just little knowledge about human trafficking. And when I find myself speaking about what happened to me, there are those people who just start judging you immediately. They will just say that maybe you went there to do prostitution, maybe you went there to do other funny games. They do not understand that the trafficking is real. And that's why you find a lot of survivors, they don't want to speak about whatever happens to them, especially those who faced, maybe those who were raped, or those who became mothers like me, or those who were trafficked for sex exploitation. They don't want to speak about it, because when you speak about it, people start having a different picture of you. So you find yourself that it's better you stay with it in your heart than letting everyone judge you. And whenever you go, they have this story in their head, and it's like they start even avoiding you. So it is not their fault to withhold their stories. It is because they are avoiding to be judged. Yeah.
I fully agree, and I thank you, Mercy, for telling us this. And I think it has to do with what Imelda said earlier. It doesn't matter your story, the details of your story. It's just that you say, you know what, I went to look for greener pastures. I had a terrible experience, and now I'm a survivor, and I am a spokesperson for survivors. That's all we need to know. That's enough, and that makes you a strong person, and that leaves it all to you what you want to share with people. And I think that's fine, and that shows your strength. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, there are a lot
Winnie
of
has her hand
survivors.
up.
Sorry, I just to add to it, there are survivors who want to speak about their experiences, but I would say that you give them a freedom to choose by themselves. You don't just start telling them to start telling whatever happened to them, but there are those who want to speak about whatever happened to them. They are okay with it. So when you give them the freedom to be able to speak about their experiences, I believe the right survivors will come to the front line and be able to work with you well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mercy. And I see, Winnie, you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Yvonne. Mine was an addition to just what Mercy was able to add towards the end. And I think as an organization, we also used to have the same view. Our goal was not to stop survivors from speaking up. From where we stood at the beginning, it was us protecting them and looking into them not being exposed to the media, them not being exposed to the public, and them being able to share their story. But I think more and more, the more we continue to work with survivors, it became clear that they're keen to be seen and keen to be heard. And I think one of the things that has changed is, for the longest time, we've always had numbers when it comes to human trafficking without face accompanying that. And it became very difficult for us to do advocacy work, even looking into policymakers. Being able to believe that this is an issue was challenging, because it's always numbers, case studies, and really no one who can be able to tell that actually this happened to them. And so us having to change or redesign our programming, looking into how do we partner with survivors beyond service delivery. And this is what has helped us being able to have individuals like Mercy being able to come up and being able to speak up. So looking at the engagement, currently we have 17 survivor advocates. All of them joined at different stages. Looking at the group that Mercy is in, we had a group of 30 people coming together. They had shown interest, they want to become survivor advocates. But then from our training, we only ended up with 7 remaining in the group. but we didn't give up. We looked into how do we continue mentoring them, because I think one of the key things we need to understand is once they have the capacity, they're able to do it. So it's the goal to look into what are the capacity gaps and how best do we journey with them, for them to have this capacity to be able to actually now speak up, be able to show up, and also considering their security needs. How do we have all these aspects being looked into so that as they speak up, we also know that they're being taken care of psychologically, physically, their security is taken care of, but then also looking at financially, because when they're dedicating their time to these engagements, it means they're not able to make an income back at home. So how do you also have this being considered? So it's an entire programming around looking into how do we engage with survivors meaningfully and really have their voice being the push within our movement. So we protect them, but really those who want to be able to speak up and engage more within the movement, look into what needs to be done for that to actually actualize, just to add to what Matthew was sharing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that's something we were also saying in our group, that perhaps in our organization, we have been too careful, too perhaps blind ourselves to not see the strength of the survivors or the choices they have and they can make. But I think you made it perfectly clear. And I thank you, Jerry, Mercy, and Winnie for your expertise and your input of this morning. And if you can all stay perhaps a few minutes longer after we plan to close, to ask Roman if he, do you feel you want to say something now, or is it, shall we have some more time for your reserve tomorrow? What do you feel?
I think today I will add, and tomorrow will, first of all, if you will hear any type of statistic from Ukraine, as I mentioned in a group, you should to know that it's minimum 3 times, according to 3 times more, according to the territory and the people, it's a massive country. It's so big, and if you want to imagine, you need to plus 3 times more than you see, just to show you a little bit, a small part of the picture, and this is, and second, I think I will share tomorrow that in European countries where we have more or less, I think, 5 or different countries around the world, it's more or less 5 million people who were displaced. We will move to different level now of problems, and what is very related to trafficking and different exploitation, because first of all, it's a less of money what they receive, and it's one thing, and the second thing is house crisis. What is, for example, in Ireland, it's a big problem, and it was a problem even for Irish people, to find a home. But now it will be, and they by this they will become so sensitive to any type of crimes, and because they can be involved everywhere to looking for house or looking for money, and it's a more or less like another level of problems what we have in Europe Union, according everything linking to war and linking to displaced people, and once they are doing all around, in a different, just now in a different situation. It's just a stress.
Yes, well, thank you, Roman. So what your main concern is now that what we heard, all the numbers that we heard, we have to multiply by 3.
Yeah.
Because it's minimal. And the now that the war is continuing, for the refugees, the problems are also changing.
Yeah.
That's what I understand you are saying. I
Yes.
see that happening here in my own country too. And that is something I think we can take a closer look tomorrow.
Yeah.
And for the moment, if that's okay with you, Roman, we leave it with this and we continue tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I would like to thank everybody very much for your attention, for your cooperation, for your stories, and for your input. And I think that's about it. So